What are the challenges faced by students?
Try something new.
What are the challenges faced by teachers in the school system? Welcome to the podcast series Beyond Classrooms, presented by Resorcio. Through this new podcast series, we are trying to initiate a discussion around the state of school education in India right now. What are the challenges faced by students? What are the challenges faced by teachers in the school system? And what are the challenges faced by the parents? In our 360-degree approach, we are attempting to talk to a series of eminent personalities across education and industry to find some answers in a burning issue. ബിയോണ്ട് ക്ലാസ് റൂം സീരീസിലെ ആദ്യത്തെ എപ്പിസോഡിൽ നമ്മളോടൊപ്പം ഉള്ളത് ഒരു വിശിഷ്ട അതിഥിയാണ്. ഹി നീഡ്സ് നോ ഇൻട്രഡക്ഷൻ. ഹി ഈസ് എ ലെജൻഡ് ഇൻ ദ ഇന്ത്യൻ ബിസിനസ് സ്പേസ്, the co-founder of Infosys, and for all of us at Resorcio, our very own mentor, Mr. Kris Gopalakrishnan. Welcome, sir, to the Beyond Classrooms podcast by Resorcio. And it is our great honor and privilege to have you here as our first guest on this series, as our mentor.
So thank you for having me, and I hope the listeners will enjoy this.
Thank you, sir. So what we are attempting to do through this series is to school education and look at all the different challenges faced by the various stakeholders, the students, the parents, teachers, school management, and so on. So I'd like to begin by asking a rather big picture question. In the age of AI, ML, and all sorts of artificially enhanced knowledge that is available at our fingertips, what really does holistic education mean anymore?
So education is about learning to live, as I think somebody said that actually, and it's become more and more appropriate in today's world because knowledge is available at fingertips. With AI, even problem solving, in some sense, you can use technology. So what is required is to bring in the human element of the solution that you want to create and the ability to create the solution as a team. In life, most things are group activity, team activity. So how do you work together? How do you give commitments and honor commitments? How do you make sure that all people feel contributing to the solution, being appreciated for the solution, leverage each person's skill sets, capabilities, and last but not the least, it's man plus machine or human plus machine. So how do you put machine also into the equation and make sure that everybody is able to contribute to their best of abilities to maximize their potential? That transition is only just starting to happen because this technology is very new. So the challenge with education is how do you manage this transition? How do you change the paradigm in the school, because it has to start from school. Children are using already AI tools. Even the toys that they have come embedded with now AI, right? They can talk to the tools, etc., to the toys. So how do you, in that environment, encourage them to understand how, yes, they need to leverage technology, but it is use technology appropriately, use technology efficiently, effectively, and you manage the technology rather than letting the technology manage you. That is a very, very important piece, and this also requires teachers to change their teaching methods, pedagogy, curriculum will have to change. All of these things will have to change. We are going through probably a difficult period in education at this point.
We keep talking about India's demographic dividend in terms of young people that will be available in the labor force. But have you felt, you have interacted obviously with young recruits at Infosys and all the other companies that you've mentored and been involved with. So do you feel that there is something missing in today's education that when it comes to churning out graduates or the employability factor of the young graduates, as has been mentioned by a few people, is that something that is your personal observation also?
So if you change the expectation of education to learning to live, um, you know, getting the fundamentals right, having the right mindset, ethics, values. If you bring those elements and some knowledge, right, those elements into education, I feel it meets the expectations because it's a foundation, right? And then you need to prepare yourself for lifelong learning. And that lifelong learning partly happens at your workplace because you have to learn and do, and partly you go back to school. So continuing education becomes a very important aspect in the future. 20 years back, 30 years back, you could learn once and use for the rest of your life. Now you need to learn once and then keep refreshing every 3-4 years. So that's what you need to change as the role of school education and college education, which is once in a lifetime. Then you need to think about continuing education on an ongoing basis. Of course, the schools will not play a role there because I don't see people going back to school, but they will definitely go back to college or they will use online resources to learn, right? So in that sense, expectations, I think, are met. If school is thought of as imparting knowledge, then expectation may not be met because then knowledge is now changing quite rapidly, right? So school has to be thought as imparting, learning to learn, learning to live, education for life, things like that.
So very profound thought. So definitely that would involve the constant upskilling of teachers as well, and possibly even policy level changes. So in your dialogues with people, perhaps in government and NGOs, has this been an area of concern? Because we have facts staring us in the face. ഇന്ത്യയിൽ ഒരു 2-year ലേണിംഗ് ഗ്യാപ്പ് ഉണ്ട്. അതായത് ഒരു 7th സ്റ്റാൻഡേർഡിൽ പഠിക്കുന്ന കുട്ടിക്ക് 5th സ്റ്റാൻഡേർഡിലെ കുട്ടിയുടെ അറിവ് മാത്രമേ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ആ സ്കിൽ സെറ്റ്സ് മാത്രമേ കിട്ടിയിട്ടുള്ളൂ. സോ isn't this and shouldn't it be a national concern really?
So these are two different things you are now talking about, right? First is that gap which you now mentioned, right? A 7th standard student has only 5th standard or 4th standard capabilities, right? That gap is a problem which needs to be fixed. I think this will be fixed if you put in good management processes in school system. You have to make teachers accountable for outcomes. Today, fixing their accountability is a challenge. Management, so it cannot be done manually. It has to be automated. So you need to provide, the tracking of their, results or their test results and things like that. What corrective action needs to be taken, etc. So today those are all done manually. With AI coming in, a personal tutor for each student can be created. They can be taught at their own pace because you can give them continuous feedback, you can do continuous evaluation, and the role of the teacher then becomes managing that process, right? And maybe giving them an appropriate advice or mentoring and helping them motivated to continue learning. So this has to be a technology intervention, and later on, this is why I like Resorcio's solution because it's all gamified. So there is fun element to this, and hopefully that will help the student take to learning better. Today they see this as a chore, and they don't want to do it, right? And then you're forcing them to do it. So we have to make it fun to learn and learn at their own pace. So if we do that, that gap can be reduced, I believe. And this is why technology intervention, gamification, etc. are very important. Then the other aspect is on an ongoing basis, who pays for this, right? So this has to be a combination of businesses paying partly and the individual paying some parts of it and the government subsidizing part of it. So there has to be a 3-way contract. Individual definitely has to contribute because you're augmenting or you're adding to your knowledge and your employability. Business has to pay for it because they get good employees and they need to keep them current. You can't hire and fire, right? That creates a very bad culture in an organization, hire and fire. And the third, the government has to incentivize things like, if you bring in 1,000 people per person, maybe 1,000 rupees we will give for training them or upskilling them. Most governments today have upskilling programs, skilling programs, etc. At national level and state level, we have programs and government subsidizes some of that.
So you just mentioned that it is important that learning be fun. I would just like to know a little bit about your school years and how that has influenced your journey in the world of industry and innovation as well. And you continue to be involved with activities in your school, development activities. So how important were those foundational years for you personally? Would like to know.
See, the fun element was Trivandrum city, right? It's the friends that I had, and growing up together. School, we had good teachers in some sense, very good teachers, and till recently, many of them were alive and we were in touch, and we used to look up to them. So the fun element is because of the teachers and because of your friends. And the city itself was a nice place to grow. A lot of libraries, a lot of things to do, etc. We could walk to any place you want, cycle to any place you want. So that was very, very nice environment to grow up in. Today, that kind of bonding, playing on the, in front of the house or in a ground, etc., has come down quite a bit. Cities have become, I would say, kind of a urban jungle or something like that, right? Crime. So you're afraid to send your children out. In those days, there was no worry. We used to go out of the house at 8:39, come back in the evening. Nobody used to worry about anything. And there were no phones, nothing, right? But nobody used to worry about those things. But today the situation is different. And so we have to bring the fun element in a different way. At school, we have to bring the fun element. So extracurricular activities within the school is very important. Allow children to become good friends, build connections for rest of the life and things like that. And it has to be brought through the pedagogy, teaching tools, things like that. And unfortunately, awareness is there, but implementation is sadly lacking because the way, really great disparity between the best schools and the poor schools. And that's where India is facing a huge challenge because the rural schools, some of the schools in the poorer neighborhoods, etc., don't even have enough teachers to just be there and monitor the students. So, and in the best schools, they're already starting to use some of these tools, some of these pedagogies, etc. So the disparity is huge. Again, I feel that in a country like India, you have to look at a technology solution. We have to implement technology solutions in our schools. We have to look at, because you don't have enough teachers, right? You have to use tools to evaluate progress, give them feedback, give feedback to the parents, etc. In some sense, give ownership to the education, to family, to parents, and teacher becoming only a facilitator in this whole process. It's a different way of thinking of education, and that's very important for a country like India.
So very interestingly, you mentioned quite a few things here. One of the factors being that families and teachers, all of them need to play an active role, and the importance of the community as well in giving a safe and a happy childhood to children, which automatically makes learning fun. So this is something that we've been trying to do at Resorcio, bring together the parent, the child, as well as the teacher in a loop through a gamified process, as you are well aware. So how would you see the attempts that we are doing, to really bring this back into play? There used to be a saying, it takes a village to raise a child. So there are no villages anymore, but still, the community that is formed is a very important factor, and that's one of the things that we do.
So the thing is, there has to be freedom given to schools to experiment. Today what happens is we have a very rigid system in place. The schools cannot follow their own pedagogy, curriculum. They can't experiment. Syllabus is fixed. So we have to think about giving flexibility to schools to experiment, to try new ways of doing things, and make sure that certain minimum standards are maintained, etc. So this is the challenge. We have to work with government, work with regulators, and try and do this. Probably easier done in autonomous institutions, or the school system. That is a problem, right? There aren't any autonomous institutions. So this is a challenge, and we have to figure out how to make it happen. Without that, I feel that we will be losing more students, and this problem of gap that you mentioned is increasing, right? So existing way of doing things will break at some point. Now, digital solutions for education is on the increase, but it's still taking the current pedagogy and making it digital, right? That is not sufficient. You have to use digital tools with advantages that digital tools provide in terms of giving feedback and making it fun and things. So that combination probably should be tried out. I feel the state should say, okay, we will take 5% of the schools or 10% of the schools and we will try this out. Something like that has to be thought through.
Some of the solutions that you mentioned, there are many countries in the world that are experimenting with school education and trying to find out what is the best way to develop a child without hampering innate creativity. Are there any systems in any countries that has caught your interest, or you feel that there are some things we can learn from those countries?
I don't profess that I know too much about what happens in other countries. I know the issues and the problems, and this is sort of problems that are faced by the more populous countries. Definitely US is facing this problem, UK is facing this problem. The smaller Scandinavian countries, etc., seem to have a lot more flexibility to experiment and things like that. So I'm not too much aware of what is happening elsewhere.
And perhaps India does have a unique set of circumstances within which we need to find the answers as well.
See, digitization India has embraced in at least certain aspects of life. For example, financial services, we have accepted digitization. Providing government services, we have accepted digitization. So in health and education, I feel that we have to move towards digitization more aggressively than we are doing now, and experiment with new ways of doing things. So for example, COVID forced us to all go online, and it worked. Of course, with children it is again another challenge, because now they don't have any social contacts and social interaction they are missing out. So take what is good and then identify the problems and fix them. That's how we need to think about doing this.
Very often, sir, you have mentioned how innovation and entrepreneurship needs to be fostered at a very early level in the schools. So have you seen that happening, at least within Bangalore or Karnataka, areas that you frequent? Do you see a shift happening over the past few years?
Not a massive shift, but shift in bits and pieces, right? And see, entrepreneurship is a way of living, or way of thinking about how you take ownership of problems, identify solutions, take responsibility to implement solutions, work with limited resources, manage things properly, be self-motivated. Now, these are all things which we can teach students, right? So that has to be inculcated, and I've seen now, children looking at problems around the school, in the society, taking ownership, solving the problems, right? Or running small projects within the school with limited budget. So some schools are, trying to do these things, but the challenge is today, the whole school system is managed by looking at the outcome marks or the score, right? Everybody focuses only on that, and some of these things then gets missed. But some schools are trying. In Bangalore, I have seen even there is a school which takes slum children and teaches them through an NGO, and I found that those children are becoming good entrepreneurs because they are taught that in the school itself, within the curriculum. They are taught these things, communication skills, managing themselves properly, and things like that. If you are able to teach them those things, I think they will absorb that. If you give them at a very young age, they will absorb that well, and then that will benefit them throughout their life.
Just continuing on that, sir. So Resorcio, we've been working with schools across Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and a few in Karnataka as well. What are some of the areas, what kind of social impact would you like to see us doing based on, the positive examples that you have mentioned? Maybe a few things you would like to see in Resorcio-enabled schools, something different.
Yeah, so first of all, one, experimentation has to be encouraged. New models have to be tried. With new technology, you have to change the way you do things, right? Otherwise, you will get the same results, maybe worse, right? So that is one. And how do you manage this has to be thought through. So that's why I said, maybe you have to say, okay, we'll try with 5% schools, 10% schools, etc. Second, we have to leverage such tools to make learning fun, and kind of bring in the, every child has the let's say will to win, right? You need to, they want to succeed, right? It's only later in life that they get pushed down so much that they lose that will. Whereas when you're a child, I think, you're born with that actually too. And so you need to leverage that and then show them that at their own pace they can keep succeeding, and encourage them to, continue in that, and then they will keep on improving. So I feel that Resorcio has to educate teachers and educate society before it's embraced and implemented in a big way, right? So that's the challenge that any new paradigm will face, right? You have to prove first. So maybe some of the results have to be widely published, right? So that awareness is created, and that spreads the message.
Of course, the third pillar are definitely the parents, and an issue that we see very often in society right now is that parents want the best for their children, but they're not very sure what that is.
Right.
So is that something, you're working with employees or your own personal connections, is that something that you see a lot, parents tying themselves up into knots and somehow adversely affecting the child?
Yeah, so for example, in several states, even the poorest of the poor want their children to learn English because they feel that that makes their children global, right? Their opportunities are global, and they can look for employment anywhere in the world. Even in India, anywhere they can go for employment. They know English. Whereas the system is going the other way, right? But yes, I agree. Maybe the primary school will have to be in mother tongue, and then later on, quickly move on to teach English and things like that, so that they're global employees, globally capable and things like that. So very similar to that, we have to create an environment where this parents wanted, right? So similarly, we have to create a environment where, or create a let's say a climate of opinion where parents feel that using new pedagogy, new tools, etc., will bring better results. Children should be allowed to learn at their own pace rather than everybody trying to meet the same goals at the same time. These mindset changes, I think we have to create the climate of opinion with parents, and this can only happen if actually there are some exemplars, there are some case studies, there are some stories created around how children learn better. In fact, I know at least some friends of mine who are actually doing homeschooling, but they're saying let them learn at their own pace, and the children seem to be doing well. There is the Valley school system in Bangalore, right, where they have no exams till 13, till they reach the 12th class, right? No exams at least. So, but those children are also doing well. So we need to talk about these things and try out these new paradigms for learning, etc.
It's often said that at the college level, the industry college linkage is very important. Fosters that relationship and upskills the students as well. Is there a case for industry linkage at the school level? Would you say, or is that too early for that?
So industry adopting schools with the infrastructure, with maybe paying something extra for the teachers, because we need good people to become teachers, right? So paying something extra for the teachers. Midday meal scheme is a important scheme, especially for schools in poorer neighborhoods, etc., because that encourages children to stay in school. So industry has to participate in this. Industry also has to participate in bringing technology into classrooms and things like that. That infrastructure they need to take on. So there is a role for industry to work in improving the educational infrastructure. The pedagogy also, industry must share some of the burden in taking on these costs and things like that. So cost is where industry can contribute, and government recognizes that. One of the CSR spends is into education, right? Education and healthcare are the highest costs in CSR spend.
That's an area that we have also been tapping into, and as you said, it really helps to bridge the gap that is widening every day. So finally, sir, just we would like to hear from you your expectations from Resorcio as we finish, because the model that we follow, including gamified learning, bringing together the various stakeholders and trying to bridge the divide, these are all things that we are trying to do at Resorcio. So just a few words from you as we launch this series Beyond Classrooms, again to sort of spark off a dialogue around school education in India. A few comments on this.
So I think getting the word out, getting this message out, writing about the results that you see, the successes that you have, I think it's important. As I said, when you try something new, there is a challenge of proving the point, educating people in the society. And that burden you'll have to take on, and maybe you have to think about adding more people to talk about these things, your spokesperson, etc. And the podcast series, of course, probably will play a role here when you get more people to talk about these things.
Yes, sir. I'm sure we've got off to a flying start with you on our first episode. Thank you so much for being here. You've always been one of our pillars of support and our mentor always. Thanks a lot, and I hope that all the various outcomes that we have mentioned, we will be able to get some of that going, if not quite a lot, with Resorcio.
Yeah, it's moving in the right direction. I think you just need to be at it, and all the very best.